Good morning, everyone. Can you hear us? Yeah, everyone here? You can use headphones if you need, but I think you can hear through the speakers as well. We're going to make a start. I know Saira's not that far away. I've got somebody picking her up to bring her to the stage, so as soon as she arrives, we'll put her on the stage. But I thought I'd start anyway with introductions and a bit of intro to our session today. I'm Raf McDonnell. I began my career in marketing as a FMCG marketeer with companies like Coca-Cola and Walker's. I was marketing manager for Walker's Crisps and also head of marketing for Coca-Cola. And now I started my own celebrity and talent management company working with creators and celebrity talent and brands, and an agency called Supernova that works with social creators and brands on campaigns. I've done many collaborations with celebrities from the likes of One Direction to Kylie Minogue, Ariana Grande, Robbie Williams, and many more. And then in 2021, I started working with creators, and it came by chance. My daughter, who was 18 at the time, said to me during the pandemic when business wasn't great, said, why don't you manage one of my friends? She's on TikTok and she's blowing up. And my answer was, what's TikTok and what's blowing up mean? I had no idea. So I started managing this 18-year-old hair TikToker, and it transformed my business. So today, I manage a roster of over 20 social media creators, including Rob Mayhew, who you might know, who was yesterday crowned the marketing influencer, #1 marketing influencer at the awards yesterday, and a variety of other talent, including the lovely Yasmin Flo Create, who you're going to hear from today. Today, we're going to talk about the rise of the business influencer. So on our panel, we have 3 different perspectives. A celebrity business owner, Saira Khan, a Gen Z marketing content creator, Yasmin Flowers, also known as Flo Create. She has 2 different personas that she uses to confuse us all. And to give us the brand's perspective, we have Jacqueline Baxter from the tech solutions company Sitecore, who've worked a lot with Rob Mayhew, which you'll hear about a bit more. So let me give you a quick introduction to Saira, who's not here yet. Saira is a British television presenter, media personality, and entrepreneur. She's best known for being the runner-up on the first series, The Apprentice UK, and is a regular panelist, or was a regular panelist on Loose Women, and has appeared on shows such as Martin Lewis Money Show and Jeremy Vine. She also contributed as a columnist to Hello Magazine, Daily Mail, Daily Mirror, and worked across social media on partnerships with the likes of L'Oreal. She's written a self-help book called Push for Success, published by Random House, but she's now dedicated herself full-time to running her own business, Saira, which she set up in 2016, having suffered from psoriasis and eczema during her youth. So for the past 20 years, this has fed her passion for organic, natural, and green products to launch her own organic brand, Sairaskin, to help women feel more confident in their own skins. I have the lovely Yasmin Flowers, who's a small business owner, marketing content creator, and social strategist. She landed her first role in the marketing industry with no experience, a lot quicker than she expected, due to the fact that she had a portfolio. So she decided to post a TikTok about it and quickly turned her page into a community of like-minded marketeers seeking support, guidance, and advice, and help along their career journeys. She's worked in the industry for 4 years and continues sharing her expertise online to inspire and educate aspiring marketeers. With over 160,000 followers on TikTok, and hot off the press, Yasmin was recently, yesterday, ranked the 49th most influential marketing influencer. Woo, give her a round of applause.
Thank you.
A full 34 places ahead of me, so you can give me a little round of applause for that one. And then finally on the panel today, we have Jacqueline Baxter, Director, Content Experience Design and Strategy at Sitecore. Jacqueline believes in building collaborative relationships, leveraging technology to positively transform people and business, and has a range of experience implementing content and social media strategies, marketing automation plans, and conversion optimization tactics. She's an in-demand speaker at DX events around the world. She's a fan of social engagement and employee advocacy driven by high-quality, relevant content. And Sitecore have been a long-term partner of Rob Mayhew over the last couple of years, so we thought it was great for her to talk about the impact of using creators in this space. So, obviously Saira is literally a few minutes away, but we'll start with an opening question. Let's maybe start with Jacqueline. Why do you think brands have suddenly discovered an appetite for working with business creators?
I think it has a lot to do with, A, trying to meet your audience where they are, which is traditionally where we would be marketing is not where audiences are now looking for their new ideas, their new tactics, where they're trying to find value. Yeah. Our customers are on TikTok, our customers are on LinkedIn, our customers are looking for the same kind of engaging content when they make business decisions that they are when they make personal decisions about what skincare brand to use. I'm a very influenced person by anybody who posts a travel video. I'm like, yes, that goes on the list. That's the kind of engagement that they're looking for and the kind of outreach that they're looking for.
Because I think for a while, B2B businesses or businesses like thought of themselves as boring. You know, like we're in the business of selling to the IT guy. Yeah. But you're right, you're in the business of selling to consumers. So why wouldn't that be any different?
Absolutely.
And Yasmin, you've experienced the same thing, that you're talking to people who are starting their careers. Why is that an important area, you think, for the influencer space?
Well, yeah, I mean, when I first started out, like, I think TikTok was very much, okay, this is a platform for, you know, dances and funny videos, but then I was quite new in terms of being on there to actually provide educational content. So it's quite different, and I think it kind of transformed the space, and now obviously we go to TikTok for that type of content as well. Like, yes, we're going there for an escape and to have like a source of entertainment and an escape, but also like it's highly valuable content, it's, you know, savable content that I'm actually going to refer back to. So yeah, I think it's a great, you know, platform and an opportunity for people to, you know, not just go on there for a bit of a laugh and a bit of a joke. You know, it's actually there's a lot of opportunity there. So yeah.
Well, and Yasmin and I talk about this quite a lot, that you're a serious business creator, but we also talk about you doing Get Ready With Me's, and because your audience obviously are engaging with you, not necessarily the topic. How important do you think that is in terms of working with the consumer and what they want?
I think that's the thing, like you have to strike the balance, you know, people like work with people and you kind of buy from people. So I think, you know, having a community and being, you know, that creator who, one, you establish a relationship with people, but also, you know, you're building connections. So, you know, they kind of see you as like a friend in a way, and like, you know, an escape, and going online to actually, you know, have someone there to actually, one, build a relationship with, but also, you know, they kind of trust your insight and trust your value. So I think, you know, if you're posting more personable content, and I think that's why B2B works, like specifically on TikTok and, you know, social now, it's just, it's different, it's refreshing, and I think that's why, you know, it's blowing up the way that it is.
It's interesting, yesterday in the list of the top 100 most influential marketeers, there were potentially more influential people like Rory Sutherland, but actually it's interesting that Rob Mayhew was named #1, and it was not a jury, it was a series of metrics, and it's because I guess the content that he creates is engaging to the audience, even though he's not necessarily a business guru that you might think. So, which leads us nicely to Jacqueline, who is a business guru, but also, you know, you've worked with Rob for the last couple of years. What made you take that step into working with influencers, and specifically Rob, who is not your typical, you know, if you were going to find an influencer to promote your product, it wouldn't have been Rob Mayhew. That's probably, you know, but what made you make that decision?
I mean, it started in the way that I think probably a lot of brands find their first influencer, which is our social media manager was a fan.
Yeah,
and she started, she was a passionate fan.
She called us, I think, and said, I love Rob's content, could we work with you?
Can we work with you?
Yeah.
And it was her advocacy for Rob and her sharing his videos and coming up with her plan and presenting her plan in a very concise but also very interesting way of, this is how I think this specific person can help us achieve this specific goal. Which, as a first step for a brand moving into a relationship with an influencer, I would highly recommend, because especially for B2B companies, that's a big step. You're moving into a much more creative realm when you engage with an influencer, and any creative endeavor comes with a correspondingly higher risk of failure, and a lot of businesses are very failure averse. So going in with this person can help us solve this problem in this way, and I need this much money to do it, gives you that very clear through line, which I hear it's often called a steel thread that you can sort of pull through the whole proposal. And then making sure, and this is what our social media manager did so well, she defined success up front. She said, this is what we're going to be looking for, and this is what success is going to look like, so that when that campaign, that first campaign with Rob did succeed, she was able to show that she had actually exceeded all of the KPIs that she had set for that campaign. And that made the next round of engagement with Rob much easier. Oh, she's here.
Saira, come and join us. Hey, well done. That wasn't bad. We've got a handheld microphone for you, Saira, so don't worry. Take your time. No, you take your time. We'll carry on talking, and you settle yourself down.
All great. Hi.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us with the train issues. You can tell there are train issues everywhere this morning,
Yes.
so you just take a breather. We'll carry on the question we're on. Then we've introduced you already, so not too bad. I mean, what I loved about the relationship with Rob Mayhew was that, and I think we'll come on to that at the question later, but you didn't just stop at, let's do a post with Rob Mayhew. You've had him come to your conference and deliver his funny routine at the conference, the fake pitch. You know, he's more than just somebody who does posts.
Yes.
He's an ambassador. You sent him a funny jumper that he wore and stuff like that. So you've really extracted value, I think, by having a longer term relationship. It's over 2 years now, I think.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
It is, yeah, over 2 years.
And do you think that makes you said the first post showed the results, then you were able to do more with him. Do you feel like you've got more as time has gone on because of a longer term relationship?
Absolutely. And more, I think, concretely, the value for our audience has increased, but also because we have started to demonstrate a relationship with Rob. It's like, we're not in business with Rob purely as a transactional proposal. We're in business with Rob because we like Rob. Rob likes us. We build those bridges and build that relationship so that you are able to prove not just the ROI of that relationship, but also build that trust with the audience that you take with you through every engagement.
It's funny because the funny jumper thing is Rob's thing, and yesterday he made me wear one of his jumpers to accept his award, so I had to go on stage with the black sheep jumper, which some of you may know is his classic jumper. Saira, perfect timing, because I've got to your first question, so it should be on.
Is this
it on?
even working?
Yep. Yes,
Can
it's
you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
I'm going to talk loudly, okay? Because this is so weird. Because
I
there's
know.
lots of stuff going on, and
I know.
right, that's the sort of thing that I pick up on. It's
I
like,
know.
come on.
Come on. Call them all out. Come over and join. Come
Guys,
over here.
hello. Come over.
So, you're in a unique position, Saira. Not only are you a personality, a social media creator, but now you're your own business owner. How does that change the way you respond when a brand comes to you, let's say in your social media world? So, as a personality, as a creator, when a brand comes to you, knowing that you're a business owner and you're looking for marketing and promotion, how does that change the way you think about it?
Well, I think being a business owner for me is just absolutely the one thing where people give you credibility. You know, I can't work for a brand unless they understand that I've run my business, I've started it, I've used accountancy, I'm using Shopify, I'm using tech, I'm using a warehouse, I'm using logistics. And I think if a brand wants authenticity, then going to a business owner is your first point of call. I'm not influencing just because of course, you influence for lots of different reasons, but I guess I'm doing it for my business, but also I think in my field of small business owners, people do want those credible figures to say, what accountant's package did you use? You know, what warehousing are you using? What was the problem with VAT returns? And I think for me, that to be also an influencer in my own space as well as a business owner gives me that authenticity. But also, I think for brands, it is about your story. You know, what do you represent, your values and your ethics? And as you know, I will not work with any brand, and I don't care if they give me 3 million quid. If you are not aligned with my values, I will not work with you. Because for my community, they see you as selling out, and that's not what it's about. I think this space is so exciting, but I think also brands have to be very clear about these are our brand values, and this is our ethics, and these are our morals, and this is what we stand for, and pick talent accordingly.
And by the way, if anyone has got £3 million to spend with Saira, please come and have a chat, because I've got lots of other talent that would say yes to that one. That might align with their values, so yeah. But I think you're absolutely right.
Honestly, I wouldn't. But even for 3 million quid, and believe me, I'm in a situation where brands are giving me some good money, and I'm like, I can't do it, guys, because you're not aligned to my values.
And I think what's interesting about that is we don't use the word influencer in our business anymore. We talk about creators. I think influencers are a very overused term, and I think we're seeing an era of genuine content creators, because the people you follow on your social channels, you follow them because they create content. You don't want to be influenced by them. Influencing sounds dirty and transactional almost.
I think it's got to be entertaining. You've got to take a brand and bring personality to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's about.
Yeah.
You know, and I can see why this whole area has exploded. Like even with me, I've got my 22-year-old niece Maya. I'm 54, and this space is new to me. And she will say to me, "You can't do that. That's cringe."
Yeah.
But then she'll tell me what I can do. So she's happy for me to do a dance with her, but I can't do a dance on my own. And I get that, you know.
Yeah.
She gets the audience, she gets what's going on, and I think that's really important to have. It's so important to have that young mind in this space telling you what's trending, what's happening, and what's not acceptable, but what's the right thing to do.
I had the same thing. I've done one of those cringy Gen Z marketing speak videos because my daughter and my team told me we should for our business, and yeah, it was cringy for me, but it actually really worked, you know, so there you go. And Yasmin, can you give me some examples of some of the business brands that you've worked with? Because you're a young creator, you're Gen Z, so you know all the slay lingo and the no cap and all that stuff that was, you know. So
No cap.
tell me about some of the brands that you've been working with.
Yeah, I mean, I recently worked with SEMrush, and I've worked with them over quite a long period, which I think, to your point as well, Jacqueline, like, having that kind of long-term relationship with the creator is really important because it kind of builds that brand, you know, ambassador role. And you're also more likely to, well, one, like I already use them anyway, and I have done for a while, so it's already a great fit. But you're more likely to obviously post a lot more organic content for them. So obviously they are getting the content, but then for over a long period of time, you're actually posting them organically. And yeah, great results, you know, and they also hosted a community event, which was great, and that kind of not only enabled us to have a networking space for like-minded marketers, but also obviously they gained a lot of extra value for that because everyone was posting organic content, so it was a great experience and a great weekend. So yeah, I'd say, you know, just off the top of my head, that was a great, you know, part of something that I really enjoyed, and you know, from a brand perspective, it was great.
Brilliant. And I know the platforms are changing, right? So Saira, you started with Instagram and platforms like that, and I think what's interesting for Jacqueline and also for Flo and a lot of creators is that LinkedIn has suddenly become a big business platform. I mean, I know most of Rob's business these days comes through LinkedIn. Most of the deals we've done together go through LinkedIn, LinkedIn posts. So I'm going to start maybe Jacqueline. Why is LinkedIn a big platform for your brand? Why do you think that's more important than maybe Instagram or Facebook or TikTok?
So part of me is still baffled by that. I'm old enough to remember when LinkedIn was a thing you checked once a month just to make sure that all of your contact information was up to date, and then you forgot about it until the next time you needed to check LinkedIn. But I do think that it's formed sort of a nexus point, and in a really interesting way, probably partly due to the rise of other social media platforms, where you're reaching people. It's acceptable to engage on LinkedIn during business hours in a way that it is not acceptable necessarily to engage with TikTok or with Instagram during business hours. If you're on LinkedIn, most of your audience is likely to be there at some point during the working day. And the fact that we've managed, I say we like I had anything to do with it, I've not, to be clear, but the fact that LinkedIn has now become a much more fun place, which it was not in 2000, when I first started a LinkedIn profile. That was not the hip and happening place to be. I still don't necessarily think that it is, but I do think that it is increasingly where people who are in business, either for themselves or with a brand, or working in business at all, manage to make their way. And so content is going to land differently because you're in a different headspace when you're on LinkedIn.
And Yasmin, as we said, most of your deals have come often through LinkedIn and also reposted to TikTok. Again, why is LinkedIn such a big channel for you? You've got how many followers now on LinkedIn? I can't remember.
I think nearly 15,000.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think for me, like obviously my main priority, you know, channel that I post most frequently on is TikTok. But I started to repurpose the content that I was creating on TikTok, obviously for purely business opportunities and for networking purposes. And yeah, since then I was able to, you know, land my first job in this industry and multiple like brand opportunities that we've had as well. So I think, I guess to Jacqueline's point, you know, the transformation of, you know, video content itself, I guess they're pushing that a lot more. It is becoming a lot more saturated, so I think brands and creators kind of have to, there's so much content out there, and even on LinkedIn now I'm seeing it, like there's video, there's statics, there's like illustrate, like there's just so much out there. So I think it is important to try and test and learn and see what is going to stand out. But it's good to see, and it's kind of refreshing to see that different content on there and how you can engage.
And perfectly brings us to Saira, because you started really with Instagram as a main platform, and you and I have had the conversations about getting onto TikTok, which you now are on TikTok, and you've now got somebody helping you with your TikTok. How have you found using new platforms? And LinkedIn you weren't on really much at all. How have you found the new platforms for you? Because it all changes, and you've got to learn a whole new...
It does change, but I also think as a business owner, you can keep losing yourself and trying to think that I've got to do this, I've got to do this. I think you've got to, as like any business owner, and also like marketeer, influencer, is find a platform, create your community, and then build from there. I'm on TikTok. I haven't really got a community on there. I'll build it, but on my Instagram community, and we are a tiny business, and I've only really started working it on the last year. But from my just 100,000 followers, we are about to turn over about £1 million. So I think people get really bogged down with numbers and followers and likes, and I think brands do, and I think that's a huge mistake, and they're not looking at the people that are behind the content, the experience they bring, and the communities that they have. I have never advertised on Instagram. I have never asked for followers. I've literally just got on there and sold. And this is where I think also, I'm an ex-sales and marketeer. I've worked with blue chip companies. I know how to sell. You do have to have that old-fashioned basic model of selling a story, the features and benefits, price, promotion, product, etc. You need to do that. And even some brands don't know to do that. So I think it's, I think I'm excited about TikTok. I mean, for my own business, we did a live yesterday. We got 200 new followers, 5,000 likes. So I can see it's big, but loads of followers does not mean they're going to buy from you. It's, and I think the metrics, like for TV now, how many followers has she got? How many likes has she got? And it's actually quite demoralizing, especially if you feel like you've got an education, you're good in your space, you can add loads of value, but you're getting overseen because the tits and teeth are out there and they're getting, and it is, some of it is, it's just because she's got 33 million followers, and it's like, well, what does that actually mean? And I think people just need to stay calm, do their thing, and know what their business plan is and go for it.
So you probably just read my next question, right? So my next question said, what are brands now looking for? And Saira doesn't read the questions beforehand. So this is, what are brands looking for when working with a creator? Engagement rather than followers. You answered the question. But I think it's a really interesting question to expand on. Because, again, going back to the top 100 list yesterday, so the winner of that list, Rob, has got 150,000 followers. And there used to be a time when brands wanted the headline number, and they'd come to me and say, oh, we need somebody with over 1 million followers. And what we found is people don't want that anymore. They want engagement, they want good quality content, and actually what we're finding more is views. Views. If you put content out and it gets 5,000 views, doesn't matter if you've got 1 million followers, it's not relevant and people are not engaging with it. So views and engagement, so you've answered the question really. Well done. But I think there's another area which is around working with talent in general and influencers and celebrities. So one of the people I work with is Professor Green, and we did an event with him recently, and I'll quote from him. He said, brands spend ages deciding if I'm the right fit for their brand, and then they ask me to talk to my audience in a way that is not me. Why bother hiring me? Why bother hiring me in the first place? And I think you said about authenticity, so maybe I'll throw this back to Saira for a second. If a brand wants to work with you, they need to accept that you know your audience and that you're going to talk to your audience in your way rather than trying to force fit what they want.
I think if you're working with somebody who is very connected to their community, your community will say to you, what are you doing that for? Why are you speaking like that? They will say, come on, you're selling an ad here. They can see it straight away. But I mean, I see Klaviyo as sponsoring this. Now, I use Klaviyo, and I use it big in my business. It's absolutely phenomenal for small businesses to reach, email marketing, etc. Now, for me to use Klaviyo and work with them, I think it's a two-way partnership. It's not just about the brand saying, here are our key messages, go and say it. It's about saying, well, we want to work with you. What's your experience of Klaviyo? What's your story? And, and how we want to slot these 3 new features in. How would you bring that in? It's really simple. It's basic communication. But I think the problem in this space is everybody wants to get loads of content out, because before you know it's too late, the trend has gone on or whatever. If you don't follow that and you follow your basic business principles, you'll be absolutely fine. And I think it's about working together and give me, what do you want me to say? Let me say it without breaking your brand guidelines, without breaking your ethics and rules, etc., best practices. And that's easily done. I just think it's a two-way conversation.
Well, I want to bring in Jacqueline here because, and some of the other team from Sitecore know this who are here. Emily, when we started working with you guys, you would just give a very loose brief and then just let Rob go with it, right? And even, I remember we still have jokes to this day. Rob and I still don't know what composable means. I still don't know, and we've done loads of sketches about composable. But you just let him go with it, and he'd make fun of the fact he doesn't know what composable means. How, when you've got your brand guidelines, how do you manage that balance between allowing the creator to get on and do what they do best, when you know that you're going to have somebody in your corporate responsibility team or your legal team breathing down your neck saying, but that's not quite on brand strategy for us. How do you manage that balance?
Well, first let me say I find it incredibly frustrating when brands go out and they hire an expert and then they won't let the expert do what the expert does best. I'm like, you might as well go outside and light your money on fire. Like, it would be faster and you're going to get the exact same results. I think for us specifically, and it was a discussion, it is a discussion, it's a discussion within your company about, and I think it does come back a little bit to you're convincing people within your company to take a creative risk. The first time you work with any new person, it doesn't matter if it's a content creator, if it's a new publicist, you're taking something of a creative risk. So bringing everyone along on that conversation, and it didn't land perfectly with everyone at the company the first time around. There were people who said, I don't get it. There were people who said, are you sure this resonates? And that's where being able to come back to the metrics and say, like, well, it is resonating. It's actually accomplished exactly what we wanted to. But I feel like you never go wrong treating people like they're smart. I've never gone wrong believing that people are intelligent and that we can have a conversation about these things, and having the conversation with yourself, with Rob, with the internal stakeholders. I mean, legal is its own thing, because I truly believe that lawyers often go to law school just so they can say, no, don't do that. Yeah. That's what they spend their time doing, and I respect it, because sometimes you genuinely shouldn't do it. But even there, being able to explain what we were trying to accomplish and where it was going to be received meant that they were able to see it through that lens and run those talking points through with a slightly different angle than they might have if, say, I wanted to write a post that was going to go on our official blog.
Yeah. And Yasmin, do you have any examples of where a brand maybe hasn't quite understood how you need to work with your audience, and maybe how you've overcome that conversation where they don't quite get it?
Yeah, I think it's difficult, right? Because brands, they have to strike the balance of, yes, you need a certain amount of like product and service, like USPs and product messaging that you need to obviously hit to sell a product or service. But at the same time, I think when you're sent a script and they kind of expect you to read it word for word, it doesn't come across authentic. So I think in that case, sometimes I have been sent like really prescriptive, like, briefs that, and there's 1,000 like key messages to kind of hit in a 1-minute video, and it's really difficult, and it comes across like overly promotional, and just people are going to straight away like, no, it's an ad. But I do understand, obviously, there's a certain point where you have to include those. But I think it's striking that balance and having that conversation with them, and just being honest and being like, look, I'm going to incorporate this, this, and this, but I'm going to do it in this way to make it fit for my channel. So yeah, I've had that a few times, but I think, it's just being open and having that conversation with them.
Saira, I'm going to ask you a question about going back a long time. So as we said earlier, Saira was the finalist in the original Apprentice series, the first ever Apprentice series. Came second, I believe. Runner-up, but got a job with Alan Sugar. So he actually did hire you, so you were hired rather than fired. He'd probably, if he was here on this panel, he'd probably call this whole influence thing a load of old rubbish. although he wouldn't, because he's actually quite a prominent influencer himself, but he probably would, just for effect, call it a load of old rubbish. What lessons can you bring from the time you worked with Alan Sugar into the world that you're working in today, 20-something years later?
I mean, that's an easy one. It's sales. You know, everybody who is on these platforms, you are a brand. And brand marketing and brand sales does not change. It's all about storytelling. It's all about how you deliver it. It's all about how you communicate to that emotion and really understanding your audience. So I don't think in terms of how you represent a brand, how you sell it, how you market it, I don't think that's changed over the years. I think the platform has changed, and what I really love to see is young people now bringing their skills and their authenticity and their life into these platforms. You know, it's absolutely brilliant. It's fun.
Yeah.
You know, before we had theories and books, and now it's like, what? I don't think that's going to work. Let's try it. Let's try 4 different ways of saying the same thing. Let's see which one works. It's all analytical. It's data focused, and that is what business is about. It doesn't matter if you're working business to business, if you are, an entrepreneur like myself. It's about the plugins, it's about the data, and it's moving quick.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, you know, I am that generation of the old school marketing textbooks. I've had to move. I edit my own stuff. I looking at TikTok and Instagram all the time. As soon as you start going, oh, this is a load of rubbish, oh, I don't see the point, you're gone, see you later, you know, retire.
Yeah.
Because you have to keep being dynamic in this marketplace. It's exciting, it's fun, but it is a business, and there's a lot of money involved, and you can make a lot of money.
And so that brings us nicely to Yasmin, who I just want to take a minute to recognise yesterday's award. So, you know, you were nominated or ranked number 49, most influential. You're
Thank you.
young influencer, marketing influencer, and anyone who knows Yasmin will know this doesn't go to her head. She doesn't even think she should be on this stage speaking, and even though she's an amazingly accomplished marketeer, professional, speaker, influencer, she doesn't think that. How do you feel getting nominated by your industry at such a young age, and how does that change maybe what you think about doing for the future?
Yeah, I think it's weird for me because I've been brought up in such a small town in Nottingham. I'm not London based. I'm not like, I've never been immersed in this kind of environment. So this is the first time doing something like this. So it is very out of my comfort zone. And I think I do take a minute, like I'm 25, I look back and I think, how did I go from working at Morrison's serving cheese at a counter like literally 4 years ago to, here, and not in that kind of way, but I just think, it's a testament to, if whatever background and where, you come from. And that's kind of what my platform's all about. I want it to make it accessible, and I think marketing is accessible, no matter what background education you've had. Like, there's opportunities out there and you can learn a lot online. The world's your oyster. So I think you've just got to not be afraid, not care what people think, and put yourself out there. But yeah, honoured to be here with, you amazing people. So. And
you've obviously got a very young audience. How do you think B2B brands should approach work, getting to that younger audience? And then I'm going to ask Jacqueline the same question, because I think that's really interesting. You've got a lot of B2B audience who are younger, and you obviously need to bring a younger audience. So Yasmin, what do you think? And then Jacqueline, I'll ask you the same question.
I mean, I'm just looking at what I engage with, and I think I seen an ad from Saira, the skincare brand, and they worked with Italian Batch. I don't know if anyone will know him, but he is the most hilarious content creator on TikTok. Please, if you don't follow him, follow him. And he does these hilarious skits. And to pair Saira with him in this ad, like, I didn't even recognize it was an ad, but it was just so authentic. It was so funny, and I think it's like 50% of audiences actually follow brands because of, to have entertaining content served to them. So I do think entertaining content is the way forward. You're not just selling, and you're not just kind of having that overly promotional content. It's actually like funny, it's comedic. And I do think specifically for the younger demographic, that's kind of where I see it going. Again, it depends on the industry and who you work with, and obviously, what product or service you're selling. But yeah, I think entertaining content is a big one for me.
Yeah, I truly could not agree more. I think it is very typical in business to forget that we're talking to people. Mm-hmm. We tend to think we're talking to segments. We tend to think that we're talking to demographics. Behind every single one of those numbers is a person, and people like to be entertained.
Yeah.
People like to have fun. People like to enjoy what they're watching. They like to enjoy who they're interacting with. And that is something that brands generally sometimes struggle with, partly because of the instant gratification that everyone is looking for. It's like, no, I want to immediately understand how my money is benefiting my business. And it's not always a one-to-one with creative content. But I do think that this is terrible. I can tell I'm going to get fired. But my number one piece of advice would be just like, relax.
Yeah.
You're going to need to try a bunch of things, especially to reach a Gen Z audience. I'm an elder millennial myself, you have to try pretty hard to get my attention. I can't imagine how hard you have to work to get Gen Z's attention. So you just have to be willing to take those risks, to try a bunch of different things, to try it 4 different ways and see which way works, to be patient. Because it might not land perfectly the first time, but what about the second time? What about the third time? What about the 9th time? It's not always going to be an immediate result, but that doesn't mean that it isn't going to be valuable and impactful in the long term.
Yeah.
You have to commit, you have to relax a tiny bit, and you do need to make sure that you understand how your brand values and your brand as a whole interacts with the space.
So I learned that the hard way with the Gen Z video I did. So I leaned into the whole using Slay and all that stuff. And one of my sons, who's an MMA fighter, disowned me because it was not cool. But my daughter, who works in social media, said about 20 of her friends want to come and work for our company now. So Gen Z, it sort of worked, right?
Yeah.
You got to try. And what's the worst that could happen? Relax and see what happens.
And see what
And if you want to laugh, go and check out the Talent Brands TikTok, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, we talk about TikTok content mostly informing, educating, or entertaining people. But Jacqueline, how do you measure the success of the content? What are your success metrics without giving away too much?
Without giving away too much. I do tend to look at views more than anything else, because that tells me impressions sometimes, again, it depends on the platform. An impression doesn't tell me as much because all that tells me is like you flicked past it, but like a view, I can generally extrapolate that you've watched at least part of that. That tends to be my primary focus. It is harder, not impossible, but harder to draw a one-to-one correlation between a view and a business outcome. But I do think that, again, this goes back to making sure it's part of a longer-term strategy, because I never pin success of a strategic endeavor on one thing, ever. I've never done it that way. It's always 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, often a year, where I'm looking at what I want to see as a steady, solid increase in engagement metrics across the board, but specifically views. If we get follows, that's great. If somebody feels inspired to hit the follow button, wonderful. If they feel inspired to sign up for an email newsletter, a very old school thing I just said. In a minute I'm going to start talking about Blockbuster Video. But if they feel inspired to do that, fantastic. But if we're seeing a steady increase, and we're seeing that steady increase come from our continued engagement with one creator, then that tells me we're doing something right.
Yeah. And Saira, you get a very different measure in terms of effectiveness, because you get that instant feedback from your followers on Instagram, like Yasmin, I was going to call you Flo. Yasmin does.
Either or, it's fine.
How do you measure success when you put out a piece of content, and what do you look for?
Sales.
Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, I have seen a direct correlation between the amount of time I'm on social media and the revenue it generates. But it's not always about generating revenue, because you also have to give people a lot of brand awareness and a bit of your own what's going on in your life. And this is where I would, for me, I think brands have to take that 360 approach. It's like social media for brands, brand awareness for 6 months. Understand this person is working with this brand, 6 months, and then if you're having a conference, take that person to your conference. Then it's a face-to-face event. Then whatever events are going around, then put them on TikTok. And I think that's the thing. I think that's what brands are missing out on. Because for me, as a brand owner, I know I get success when they see me doing the same sort of thing on the different platforms, because they get it. They're like, oh, she's doing that. I'm not introducing a new person, or you know what I mean? It's like loads of brands seem to use loads and loads of people, and the messaging is so confused. So for me, it's about taking a couple of people that you really, really love and you enjoy, platforms resonate with yours, but take them in-house, 360. Take them to your events, get them to speak at your events, you know, bring them onto lots of other platforms.
Yeah.
So, but for me, as a brand owner, I know my community works because I see it in revenue and I see it in brand awareness.
And I'll give you a final chance to just say, you mentioned one brand. Are there any other brands you'd like to work with particularly?
Well, do you know, I run my own business and I love that part, but there is a part of me that I feel as an SME business owner, I've got a lot to give a brand. And it's additional income, you know, I'm not going to be shy about it. I'd love to work with a brand. But, you know,
Sitecore next time.
But we were, you know, and also like my demographic, I'm in my 50s, I'm a mother of two, there's family aspect to it, there's an entrepreneur aspect to it. You know, Klaviyo, I love Klaviyo, you know, and it's not, Klaviyo wouldn't have to come to me and go, so these are our brand messages. So I know what your brand message is. I can show you examples of where our marketing, I can show you the data, I can show you how we use it.
Right.
So you're working with brands that you understand, you know? So like an accountancy firm. You know, I know for many small businesses and even influencers who have had to set up, you know, their own, sole trader accounts. It's so confusing. You know, it's so confusing. And how do you know when to bring in? How do you know when to scale up? So, I mean, anything to do with business, any brand that's in the business sphere that needs somebody of my profile, I'd love to work with them. Why not?
I'm going to ask, so that's your final question, because we're going to wrap up in a second. And Flo, or Yasmin, I want to ask you, are there any brands you admire, what they're doing in social media, that you'd love to work with?
Great question. I mean, for me, I guess I've got kind of two elements to my channel. You know, I kind of help aspiring marketers to get into the industry, but then also I'm at kind of the start-ish of my career, so I'm kind of growing myself and learning, and you know, I'm always introduced to new platforms, new tools to kind of help my own journey, my own career. So it's kind of like goes hand in hand. So yeah, I guess any marketing, you know, tool or platform or space or, you know, community that's going to aid that. I love what Adobe's doing. I think they do really community-driven campaigns, and I think that's at kind of the core of what I've seen from like an influencer standpoint. So yeah, I think they'd be a good one. But yeah, I'm pretty open. There's a lot going on and there's a lot to learn. So yeah.
And then, Jacqueline, I'm going to leave the hardest question for you, which is, where do you see the future of sort of social creator marketing going from a brand perspective?
Gosh.
I know, it's a big one to end on.
It's a big question. I can feel the legal team being like, don't answer that. Right over my head. I think we're going to see, well, what I hope we will see, what I am encouraging is to see those longer term relationships and to see brands being more thoughtful, because you're absolutely right. There's so many brands that work with so many different people and the messaging is confused and I'm not really sure what you're trying to say and I'm not really sure who the audience is. And so I would like to see brands really focusing in on those longer term relationships, building those longer term results into their overall content strategy, their overall social media strategy, working with people who you know you can continue to work with, building that relationship, and like you said, bringing that 360-degree view, not only of the company, but also of the relationship between the brand and the influencer, which reinforces authenticity because it is authentic. You are in business with this person because you like them, you believe in them.
So I'm just going to summarize a few key themes that we've heard today. Really important to identify the right creators for your brand. Let them create the content they know will work for their audience. Build longer term relationships, not just one-off campaigns or posts. Evaluate what success looks like. And the final theme, use B2B creators more. So please get in touch if you'd like to work with any of the people here that you've worked with, that you've seen today, or want to use celebrities or creators in your marketing, please get in touch with me. But please put your hands together and thank the panel for being here today and getting through all the train trouble.
Thank you. Yes, especially you. You made it.